Next up, we have a presentation from this year's top scorer, the Swedish machinery company SKF. We have the Group Circularity Manager, Daniel Bosson, here. So go ahead, Daniel.
Yes, thank you. And the typical starting question, do you see my presentation shared? You see it. Great. Thank you. Good. So first of all, thank you, Asu, and thank you, Nini.
Now the presentation disappeared.
It disappeared again. Let's see.
Now we see it.
Yeah.
Now you see it. Perfect. Let's make another go then. And I'll continue where I left off. So thank you very much to Asu and Nini for inviting us to present here today. And thanks to the entire Just Shift team for good collaboration and discussions during the process. It was really, really interesting to see the results being presented. It definitely shows the challenge that we all are involved in. And even if we at SKF managed to get quite a good, relatively speaking, score, there are definitely challenges ahead of us all. And I think it was interesting to see that we have some common gaps in the group that everyone is missing out on, but also the possibilities of utilizing the good practices going forward. So my name is Daniel Bosson, and as Asu said, I work at SKF. I'm part of Group Sustainability, where I focus primarily on climate and circularity related topics. So I'll take the opportunity to share some of our findings and learnings with a focus on net zero emissions and the net zero emission part of the steel sourcing, you could say. But before we go into steel specifically, I just wanted to say a few words about SKF overall, because I think our role in the steel transition is shaped by the type of company we are and the type of products that we deal with. In brief, we are a global industrial company. We focus on rotating equipment solutions, and in practice, that means our historical core product, of course, with the bearings, roller bearings and ball bearings, together with other products and services that helps secure the rotating equipment performance. So it's seals, it's lubrication services, it's condition monitoring, and then services around this, including circular business models like remanufacturing and reconditioning of oil, for example. We have customers across very many different industries, more than 40 customer industries in totals. A few you can see here, the automotive, industrial, and energy sectors. Even though SKF is now in the middle of a quite significant change where we are separating the automotive and industrial business into two separately listed companies, and that will happen later in 2026. We have a global manufacturing footprint, more than 70 manufacturing locations globally in all parts of the world, and our products are by nature steel intensive, and we have a steel intensive value chain as well. In terms of size, we are about 38,000 employees. We have 17,000 distributors around the world, and we have presence in about 130 countries. Important to point out, of course, as well, as all of you know, we are not a steel producer, but we use steel then at a large scale. And I think that makes our choices relevant in this transition that we have been discussing as part of Nini's findings. So steel is not just one input among many for us at SKF. It's rather the question at the center of our upstream climate challenge. That's the nut we have to crack. That's the difficult question to answer. And Jonas and the team at Just Shift, if anyone raises a hand or something like that, I can't see the participants. You will have to shout if that's the case during the presentation, or stop me if there's something that is unclear. So let's look into why steel matters at SKF then. And steel is definitely our most important raw material, and it's together with other steel components, so steel and steel components, those two are our largest contributors to our upstream Scope 3 emissions. They stand for around 70% of those emissions. And we purchase more than 400,000 tons of steel and steel components in a year. So for us to decarbonize steel is definitely central to deliver on our net zero promises. So I can only reiterate what I said on the previous slide. If we can't solve this question, we will not be able to reach the ambitions that we have set for ourselves and that we have committed to our investors and to other stakeholders and people interested in us. And on the picture to the right, I guess you can see for yourself why our products are steel intensive. So this is a ball bearing, or an illustration of a ball bearing anyway, with an inner ring and an outer ring manufactured from steel. You have the rolling elements, either balls or rollers, also most often made out of steel. And then a cage, which could be another type of metal. But anyway, it is a product primarily made out of steel and steel components. And then we combine that with lubricants to make sure it rotates efficiently and seals to keep the dirt out. But you can't see the lubricants and the seals on this picture. So then, if steel is the most important question for us, the next step is then to place it within SKF's broader net zero ambitions, and to be clear about what and where we have made progress, and also where things are more difficult and where the hard work is still remaining. And it was really interesting to hear from Nini that all 15 companies have science-based targets, and of course then so do we. And our ambition is that by 2030, all our own production facilities will be decarbonized, meaning, to be exact, 95% reduction of the emissions compared to 2019 as a base year. And by 2050, we have our full value chain or full supply chain from materials to the delivery of our products should be net zero. And right now we're working hard and intensively to meet our interim target. So the interim target for 2030 is a minus 32% in emissions from purchased materials, Scope 3, Category 1 compared to 2019. And I must say, we realize, as many others, that it isn't that far away. 2030 is only 3.5 years away, and we need to act now if we should have a chance to meet this target. We're making good progress, and just to give you a little bit of distinguish a little bit between our own operations and the value chain. You see the progress in the two rightmost columns. So in our own operations in Scope 1 and 2, we are, I would say, already far along, and we are ahead of our own trajectory. So in 2025, emissions were down by 79% compared to 2019. And we used 91% renewable electricity, just to give you two metrics on the progress we're making there. So it touch wood, but it looks good towards our 2030 commitment. In the value chain, that's where the steel transition is the key part. So again, returning to 2025 and our numbers there. So 51% of the steel we used were scrap-based. That's one step on the way, and I'll come back to the importance of scrap-based steel in the short to medium term for us soon. We also have a milestone for 2030 where we require some of our bearing steel suppliers to set either science-based emissions reduction target or supply steel that qualifies to responsible steel level 2. And I think Nini made a reflection about some of these requirements that we are set, and the opportunity for most companies in the analysis to step up. This is a start, but we're not fully there. I'm sure we could widen the scope for the requirements we set for all steel suppliers. And then the third bullet there in the rightmost box is on strengthening KPIs and the tracking for Scope 3 Category 1. So we are now working internally primarily to strengthen how we track progress towards the 2030 target. And this will, of course, then involve our procurement teams and our operations to make sure we make the right decisions to actually move in the direction that we want. It will require difficult decisions, and it will require changing the mix and shifting suppliers and developing suppliers on the way. So in summary, to reach our net zero emission ambition by 2030 and then 2050, steel is where we can win or lose the credibility here, really. We can only win if we win steel. So then the question is, how can we then translate this longer term ambition into something that is concrete enough to act on together with our suppliers and the market as a whole? And Nini asked me in advance of the session to say something about the organizations that we engage with. So from our perspective, we see that turning from ambition to real progress, we need to collaborate. And for example, we need to make sure that the demand signals from us as buyers is clear. And I'm sure Anna and Ola will say more about this in their upcoming presentations as well. We need to agree on what low emission steel is and how to verify that it is low emissions, and of course also how to verify that it's sustainable from any other perspective. We need to understand the pathways in the future. I don't think anyone believes that we can take one step and be done. We need to take many small steps, but they all need to point in the right direction. And then we need some sort of alignment across the value chain. So from the end customers to the system or application manufacturer to a component manufacturer and back to the steel and raw material there. So from our perspective, the SKF's role, so we are an early member of Steel Zero, and we are committed to the 2050 ambition of 100% net zero steel. And we very much value how Steel Zero, and I saw someone from Steel Zero joining the session here, we value how they help create that coordinated buyer side demand signal that I mentioned just before. We have also been an active participant in responsible steel. I can't take credit for that, but I have many good colleagues, some of which are on the call today, but also other colleagues previously who have really contributed to the definitions and standards, and to define what lower emission steel is and how we can support these verification pathways on the journey there. And we appreciate that work, and we know that responsible steel is really pushing here, and that comes to benefit for all of us. And then, of course, we need to work directly with our own suppliers and potential suppliers. And only when we work together in all of these, we can turn the ambitions that we have into something that is really delivering in the end. Of course, each individual initiative won't solve the problem on their own, but together we can have more structured and coordinated actions toward a common goal. And for us, this has helped turning the ambitions into concrete targets and criteria and expectations on the suppliers. as an example, what I mentioned on the previous slide, where we have for some of our key and strategic suppliers, the requirement to have science-based targets or to fulfill level 2 with the responsible steel certification. So collaboration is one side of things. The other one is the expectations, also referenced in the findings from the Just Shift analysis. And we have to use our purchasing power to set requirements on the suppliers to support this transition. And we have a supplier sustainability team, and some of the members from there are listening in today. So if you have specific questions, I'm sure they can support me in answering that as well. And climate is one thing, but product material compliance, health and safety, and human rights, of course, are all really important topics here as well. And here we work to embed requirements in our supplier standards and in the contracts we do. We expect a high level of data and transparency to be able to take the right decisions and to have a dialogue on how the suppliers will improve over time so that we can reach our targets. I mentioned it again, the interim milestone, including expectations on suppliers for 2030 is very much linked to the transition in steel. And this is not about minimum compliance. This is about trying to design the requirements we put on suppliers and the way we do purchasing with sort of a strategic perspective. How do we move in the right direction together? And of course, then the real test is whether this translates to actions and to decisions and what we're doing in real life. So let's look at some of the levers we see. What can we scale today and what points more to the future? And just to give some examples then. So increase the scrap-based steel was mentioned before. So 50% of the inflow is scrap-based today. And we are partnering with suppliers that have aggressive and proactive transition pathways towards increasing the share, that have efficient EAF routes using renewable electricity. This is something that we have to do, and we do it today. We have really good examples of suppliers with a very high scrap share delivering good quality steel with a low or smaller footprint. And then we need a future. And again, I'm sure this is something that both Anna and Ola will talk about as well. But of course, we are dependent on the industrialization of newer solutions and newer technologies. And just to give an example, we already back in 2024 did a pilot H2 DRI steel bearing. So we know it works. We know this is something that we can work on going forward. And we want to be part of that journey. But we realize even though we believe we buy a lot of steel, we're not a big player in total, but we want to contribute to that development, definitely. And then we need to use our purchasing power to create the pull and work with organizations like Responsible Steel and Steel Zero to develop the standards and the criteria that is required for the journey to come. So to wrap up in the end, just a few words about the recognition. It was really nice, of course, to get the good feedback from the Just Shift team on our score. Not necessarily a high score in numbers. We would have wished to be closer to 100, but still very happy about the number as such. I think this is really external validation of the long-term and systematic work we have had at SKF. It shows that it's not necessarily people dependent, but something that we have managed to do over a longer time horizon to develop ourselves to the position we are right now. But the recognition is not a destination. It's not where the end point. I think this also increases the expectations on us going forward. But it adds that useful external pressure and validation of what we're doing. I think it also shows that we have a strategy and we have partnerships and we have processes that are starting to deliver some good impact. And the analysis as such provides a level of transparency and accountability, and we can definitely learn a lot from all the companies involved here to become even better going forward. So if I can end with a bit of a wish or a positive note, we as a company believe that low carbon steel has to become the normal practice. It can't be a niche solution, and I don't think it comes as a surprise, but if I say that can only happen if we as buyers, you as steel makers, but also the standard setters and the policy makers move together. Final piece of information on the right side, we see a document that we are quite proud of. So if you're curious to learn more about our journey towards net zero, please have a look at the position paper that we have published on skf.com, and the link is also included if you will share the material later from us. So thank you.